Hey everyone again. So I know I'm going on a rant with these videos, but I just keep on feeling inspired and motivated to talk and just send some messages out there. But today I'm going to talk about pain and how much suffering we have within ourselves and how much we don't really understand and see. And this turns into physical symptoms as migraines, headaches, stomach aches, anxiety, and this is very relative to how we think and how we let external things influence us. So, I want to give an example of an extreme form of pain, and this is outside of ourselves. And when I am walking on the street and I see a homeless person, every bit of me wants to go inside of them and understand how they got there and what allowed them to get there. These individuals are in so much pain and suffering that they are lost in themselves, that they can become so low in their selves and in their being that they are portraying themselves as just a mess. And if we can see these individuals walking around in such a tremendous amount of pain, these are feeling human beings, and they let the feelings eat them up inside, and they are just suffering. And I, what if I told you that feeling pain and feeling happiness and feeling guilt and jealousy is an illusion? What if I told you that everything that you feel isn't really real? We are, in a sense, programmed to have immediate gratification and think that certain things in our lives are going to make us happy. But if we tore all those things away that made us happy, would we be whole? If we didn't have our 1 hour of Netflix, if we didn't have shopping sprees, going out to the movies, if only we can be connected with others, would you be happy? And pain is such an interesting topic because this could be transformed into so many different aspects of our lives. And how much pain do you carry with you, honestly? How much stress do you carry with you? How much inner conflict is inside of you? And if we can learn to free ourselves of them and really, I don't mean that these things are just an illusion, but as a way to practice, maybe we can start by telling ourselves that they are an illusion, that they aren't real, because I don't believe that they are. I feel like being in a neutral state and letting the highs and the lows of life, the floods of happiness and the floods of excitement, when those things happen to you, take them on in the moment and let them pass. You know that no matter what, when you're happy, you're going to be sad eventually. But we cling on to wanting to be happy. So we strive to do bigger and better, and this is obviously a great thing if your mind is in the right track, and if your morals and your values are aligned with the universe in a sense, and who you are to the core. But if they are aligned with external things, then this is not going to make us happy. And when we become down and depressed, I I want to use a personal example. I work for a volunteer call center. I need to go back. I haven't done it in about 2 months, but people randomly call, and we get the majority of the people that are usually depressed and sad. And I just think I was you at one point. I was you. I was spinning in my own thoughts, completely miserable, completely numb, and in a sense, swimming in my own yuckiness. And I would actually my heart would beat like crazy. I would get stomach aches. I couldn't sleep. And once you can learn to free yourself of the idea of emotions and where these are coming from, they're not real. You can free yourself from pain and suffering. And I'm not talking about pain and suffering from the individuals that are starving or don't have a roof over their head. I'm talking about us individuals that are a little bit more privileged and that are able to turn on the water faucet and have water, that are able to go to the grocery store and buy some food. We are very, very privileged, and we are very spoiled, and we need to really think about these things. And why are we in pain if we have everything around us and we can do anything that we want in our lives? Why are we suffering? And again, this is going into your thoughts and how you think. And the way that we can really be happy is within ourselves. The more that we externalize or expect people to make us feel a certain way, we are gambling, because people change all the time and we have to allow them to change. If we can be, the way that I can correlate love in its truest form and the way that a relationship should be is the unconditional mother or father that is a very, very good parent and is very knowledgeable, that will allow their child to make mistakes, and they know them and they understand them, but they allow their child to make their own mistakes and their own faults to learn from them. But the mother or the father are completely 100% unconditionally loving. This is the best way that I can explain who we should be to ourselves. We should always be unconditionally loving to ourselves, no matter what. If we are sad, we have to acknowledge that this is just temporary and we need to move on from it. And in this process of pain and suffering, there is a lot of enlightenment in that. There's a lot of beauty in that. And this is a journey. And the biggest, I'm in school right now, and the most beautiful thing that I like about school is the struggle in between it. When I graduate, it's going to be another journey, but it's still going to be like, oh, I miss those steps. That is the most beautiful part of it. 2, 3 years ago, I just wanted to see the end result. Oh, when am I gonna be in my career? When am I gonna grow up? When am I gonna be able to do all these things? But you are living and you are doing these things now. And what kind of burdens are you carrying with you? You know, what kind of things do you feel are holding you back? Do you stress out a lot about things? And if so, what is triggering this stress? Stress is very, very damaging on everything, on all parts of your body. It's it's just it's not good to be so stressed all the time. Those feelings that you get, what happens physically into your body, what happens with um, your brain chemistry and your hormones inside, it's really messing you up. And this stress relates to strokes, heart attacks, we see everything. And the thing about our society is that we treat symptoms. We don't prevent things. You have a headache, I'm going to give you aspirin. We don't look back at the history and see what's causing these things. And there needs to be a shift in this too, because there is money to be made in medicine. There is money to be made in the medical industry. Everything is a business, and if we can really understand that it is a business. And also, what I want to trail back to school also. So for such a long time, I felt out of place with the world, and I thought it was really silly that to get anywhere in life, what's shoved down our throats is you need an education. You need an education. You have to get a diploma. You have to get a good job. You have to do this. But with our new age and people that are making themselves out of nothing, we see that education is not necessarily the answer. Having a piece of paper isn't necessarily the answer. And I was thinking to myself, this is so silly that I need to jump through all of these hurdles to help someone, in a sense, you know? Where is the connection? Where is it's like human connection and human hearts has now been put into a system of making money, and I have to jump through all of these hurdles to be credible, and I have to be smart in a sense to have this connection with another human being. granted, I understand that education is important, but someone can be smart and be completely disconnected to another individual, and I guarantee you a patient will not go back to that doctor or dentist or psychiatrist or psychologist if you're completely disconnected and you're just reading out of a book for your therapies or for as your method. I guarantee that. So it's both. It's having the credentials under you, but it's also having that connection. And I find after much thinking and time, I thought I have to go back to school and I have to jump through all of these silly hurdles that what is expected, that what society wants. And I have to do this in order to be my true self. And I was listening to Ralph Smart just a few minutes ago, and he just says, once you can have a sense of humor about the game, that we are in a game in society. We're born and we are in this rat race in a game. It's no different than the Hunger Games, really. That's their culture, right? This is our culture. It's we see it as like that's very odd, but it's just how that type of society works, and this is how our type of society works. And when we can learn to be whole within ourselves and rid ourselves of the pain and the suffering that we feel, it takes work to do this, and it is a great challenge. And as Ralph Smart was saying, when we feel that we are 100% responsible for our own selves, people don't want to do that. They want to look towards external things to give them satisfaction. They want to look towards their partner to make them feel whole. But I can tell you there's much beauty in the struggle, and there is much beauty in realizing that you are your own master and you are your own creator. And if I lost everything, I would be okay. If I didn't have a bed to sleep in, I would be sad and I would miss the comfort of my bed. But I feel just so connected with life itself and the universe. And I think what's led me here and what's led me to believe that the feeling of connection is being isolated from others and coming from a history and a childhood where I felt so disconnected from people and the human race because all I knew was a dysfunctional way of living, that I found my peace in the universe. And when I would go hiking and traveling, it was always constant and it was always loving and it was always there. The sun will always rise, the sun will always give me nurturance and power, and it will always set, and there will always be another day as long as I'm breathing and alive on this planet. And as soon as I connected with that, I realized people have their own journeys and people are inconsistent and consistent as well, but we have to allow them to do that. And what is the pain that you carry within you? What is that? What are the feelings that are controlling you? You know what they are. You know when they kick you, and you know when they make you maybe sweat or breathe heavy or um, feel like shit. You really know those feelings. And if we can learn to break them apart and really understand them and see what's causing them, we can track back, hey, this is what's doing it. And if you need to avoid those situations for a little bit and work your way up into them, by all means do it, because you're going to be stronger in the long run. I know it sounds maybe weird, um, but I feel like I've gone through so much pain in my life and depression and suffering maybe 3-4 years ago, 5 years ago, that I feel like I can tackle on anything now. And that process was not easy. It took a lot of tears and a lot of hate initially and a lot of forgiveness. I had to learn to forgive whatever was in order to move on. And another thing that correlates with pain is forgiving. Forgiving is not about the other person. Forgiveness is about you. Forgiveness is about you moving on and feeling the situation or whatever has happened, the longer that I attach my pain onto someone else, onto what this person did to me, on how this person made me feel, what is that doing to you? What is that doing to your body and your mind? People wake up with nightmares about them and flashbacks and have postpartum depression because of it. And they fall into a depression because of it, because they feel so out of control. And these are people that have an external locus of control. People with an internal locus of control feel that they have the power to control their own life. People that have an external locus of control feel powerless, and they feel that everything outside of them is the cause of where they are. They believe in luck. Oh, I just must have gotten lucky. I'm not good enough. I'm not special enough. But the people that have good internal locus of control take control of their own lives. And forgiveness is freeing. Forgiveness is no longer being able to blame someone else for what happened or for how you feel. And forgiving doesn't necessarily mean that I have to have a relationship with that person. It doesn't mean that I have to tell them I forgive you. It means that I acknowledge what has happened. If it is an incident or another person, I acknowledge what has happened. And if we can say, that is life, let's move on. This is a part of the journey. This will only make you grow. What good does it do if you sit in them? What good does it do if you wake up with these thoughts? I mean, if it's necessary, we should maybe journal about them. And if we're struggling through something, that the best way that worked for me is just writing and crying and backspacing through everything and rewriting and crying more. And I I I want to bring something a little bit personal that might make me a little sad, but um, I was reading about childhood trauma, and I went onto this website, and it made everything more real. So everything that I was battling with inside, I knew the suffering that I was going through, but I just didn't know how to free myself from it. I can put logic into my childhood. I can see the reasoning into why my childhood was the way it was, why my my family was the way it was, but I still couldn't figure out how to get out of the emotions of it. I was creating destructive patterns in people that were not even a part of my childhood or my history. So I was creating everything destructive outside of where I came from. So I did this really interesting exercise, and this exercise allowed me to, as I was reading through it, I could see myself in two different parts. So the exercise was basically saying that you need to get rid of the childhood trauma. You need to get rid of the other self, even though it will always be with you and it should never be neglected. We need to move on from it. It will stay inside of you, and we need to be aware of it, but we need to grow and we need to move on. The more that we look back into our pain, the more that we live in the pain, we aren't moving on. We aren't progressing. And in some ways, being in pain is the only way that we understand and the only way that we know. So it becomes comforting. Anything can become comfortable. Happiness can become comfortable. Complacent can be a sense of comfort. Negative feelings, depression can be comforting because this is the only way that we know how to function, or that we are used to. But I can tell you, there are many ways that we function. We are very adaptable, and we can adapt to anything. So this exercise basically, for me, I was dealing with the inner child within that had dealt with trauma in my childhood, and it basically said, Put yourself in a calm place, wherever this is for you. Think of the most beautiful place that you've ever been. I put myself in Hawaii, in the Pili Shores, in Maui, and I put myself in the most beautiful sunset that I've ever seen, and it's still burnt into my brain. And I put myself there, and I felt completely safe. It says, you want to put yourself in a safe environment. Now, pretend that your 6-year-old self is sitting in a chair right next to you, and if you can ask him or her everything that you want to ask, what would you ask? And I ask all these questions, and as you're reading through, it's the childhood is telling you, I acknowledge it, I see your pain and suffering, but it's time for you to move on. It's time for you to move forward. And once we can learn to separate these things, but still have them be a part of us, it is the most beautiful thing. And I honestly don't even know why I'm crying, because it's still in me. But looking at it as an adult and seeing the struggle and everything that I needed to get here, it's so magnificent, you know? I enjoy crying because it's a part of being. It's a part of me. So once you can really understand and really separate yourself from the pain and understand that it'll always be a part of me, but I love it and I take it with me. And I take it with me in a growing process. And this is what pain and suffering does to you. It debilitates you. And if I'm constantly putting myself in my childhood memories, this is all I would be. This is all I would be doing. I would be crying. I would be miserable. And I choose not to be that way, you know? I just want to feel connected with the beautiful self within and everything that is in nature and everything that is about life. And I just wanted to share that with you, that pain is within us and it's real, but it is also something that we can surpass, and it is an illusion in a sense, because we are trailing back to them all the time and we are not growing. So the biggest thing that I could recommend, or the biggest thing that I can say will help, is to face them. Face them. Do not play a victim to your pain. Do not say that everyone else is at fault, because you create your fate and you're responsible for your own emotions. And once we can create that, we allow ourselves to be whole, and we allow ourselves to understand that this is my life, these were the cards I have been dealt, and let's move on from that. You know, there's no need to be in pain anymore. There's no need to ask why. Just let things be. And if I could end this, I would just say that next time you see an individual suffering or an individual that is in pain, do not disconnect yourself from them, because they are just an extreme form of what just happened here within me. They are people that cannot get control over the sadness and the pain, that they lose all hope. But I am no different than the individual walking on the street. And once we can allow ourselves to see the beauty in them and really connect, then we can understand that we are not very different. The
person that is addicted to drugs, the person that is in an extreme form of happiness. Is just, we're all on different extremes of the spectrum. We are all being fueled and driven by our different emotions to an extreme. The people that are functioning in society, from what we see, are pretty steady. But the people that are locked up in the rooms, the people that are begging for money on the street, are extreme forms, but they are no different than us. They are one or two or three different choices away from us. And I guarantee you that they lacked a lot of resources and a lot of education and a lot of love in their life. And when you think that you are in pain, look at those individuals and understand that they are in more pain than you. And when you think that you are suffering, look up at the sky and realize that tomorrow is another day, and tomorrow is new opportunities to shift pain. And if we need to sit in that for a little bit, if this is where we grow in darkness. We don't grow in only the night, in light. So it's the yin and the yang of everything. So sorry about that. I hope you found this video useful. I probably sound like a little congested because that's what happens in my nose. But I want to ask you, what is your pain and suffering, and what causes you pain? If it's internally, please elaborate. If you're going through internal conflicts, I would love to share, and I would love to talk to those things about you. If it is about external things that don't seem to make you happy, let's talk about those things too. So thanks again for listening, and thanks again for your patience through all this, and thanks, beautifuls. I will make another video soon.